share screen. Okay, is my presentation or is my slide visible to everyone?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, great. So today we'll just look at object-oriented programming. Okay. So basically, why do we need object or why do we need object? So that is the main problem. So last time what we were doing was we were just writing simple line of code, let's say. We're writing simple lines of codes like as we saw previously. So we have lines of codes like this: seconds in day equal to this, seconds in day equal to this, and so on. So this is something like when you write codes as this, so this kind of fashion, this kind of writing code is known as procedural procedural programming fashion. That means to say, whatever is the task, you are just executing is line by line. So this actually lacks two things. The two things are, one is that if you want to reuse the same functionality again, so you can't do it, just you have to duplicate this. Again, you just have to copy this and you just have to paste it some other places also. Let's say you want to define, let's say you want to generate this graph, this chart, you want to generate this chart. Then what you have to do is, you just have to copy this entire code, but with your own different data and do these things. So this has created a problem. What it has created is it has duplicated a lot of code. The duplication is main problem here, and we need to write it and write it again and again. So that was the problem. So to avoid this problem, so what we did was we introduced the concept of function or method function in procedural programming, because we uh, so we introduced a concept of function. So using function, last day also we showed that using function, we just call that function everywhere, wherever we want to use that. We just call that function, and based on function, so the code redundancy is avoided. But still there is a problem with the function. That is that so the functions and variables are not integrated at one place. So that means to say, we have functions at one place, and we have data at some other places, right? So how can we integrate those data and functions at one place? So that is something known as object oriented programming. So that means to say that, let's take an example. I'm a person. So as a person, so if I have to model myself, how can I model myself? So I have hand, I have ear, I have nose, I have my specific height, I wear some specific type of dresses, and also I do certain kind of activities like I teach, then I walk, then I watch movie, and I do certain kind of things, right? So when we have to integrate all those functionalities, when I have to represent myself as single entity, how can I represent this? So I can represent this based on I can represent this based on object-oriented programming concept. So that means to say, as an as a person, I am an specific object. As a person, I am an specific object or instance. So that has two things. One is specific properties or something like variables. So specific properties means to say, for example, my eye size, my nose size, my overall height. So these are specific properties or specific variables like structure. And the next thing is some specific kind of activities I do, some specific kind of functions I perform. That is, I just work, I teach, or I teach, or I I work, or I participate into certain competition. So these are the some specific functions I do. So that means to say, as a person, I have two things. The first thing is I have some specific kind of properties or values, and next thing is I perform certain kind of functions or activities. So how can I integrate it? How can I integrate both properties and functions at one place? That is the question. So that question is entirely addressed by our object-oriented programming. So that is the overall whole concept of object-oriented programming. So that means to say, I am just as a person, I am a class, and the specific, so person means to say, as a as me, I am an object of a person. I am an object of a person class. So when I represent myself, I am a human being, right? When I represent myself, I am a human being. That means to say that human being is a class. And when I talk about myself, so that means I'm representing myself as an object. So as a human being a class, I am an object of that class. Okay? As a human being, as a class, I am an object of that class. So that means to say, now you have to understand two things, the class and object. So class means nothing but a specific blueprint, a kind of blueprint. Human being, like for example, if we talk about human being, so human being means to say it has certain kind of weight, it has certain kind of height, like every human being has two eyes, then one nose, a specific kind of height ranging from, let's say, 5 feet to 7 feet or 8 feet, and a specific kind of some predefined weights ranging from, let's say, like 1 kg to 70, 80, 90, or 100 kg. So that is just a blueprint. So the blueprint is something known as class, and its specific properties. Let's say now as a human, if I have to talk about myself, so that means to say I am an object of that class. So the object has its unique values, then object can perform certain kind of activities. So that is something known as concept of object oriented programming. Okay, as here you can see this box. So this box is something like, you can consider the box as an object. So where there is some specific kind of value is given, like 7. So this is some specific kind of property. And the box, like for example, the box may have its color, so that is a property. So box property, it has its weight, so that is its property or value or variable. So in simple term, we can understand this as variable. But box may have certain kind of functions as well. Let's say that if it is an if it is a box, if it is, let's say, let's consider if it is a box, engine box. So engine box, what engine box do? So engine box may heat up the engine, right? It has some specific kind of function. So maybe the engine box turns the wheels, turns the turbine. So these are some specific kind of functions of object. So this is the overall concept of object-oriented programming. Now, in summarizing, how do you have to understand object-oriented programming? So object-oriented programming is nothing but a real-world representation of specific class and their specific instances. Like we provided an example of human being. So human being is a blueprint of person. So that is human being as a class, and we as a person, we as a persons, we as persons, we are specific instant, we as an specific example, we are objects of that human being class. So you just have to understand those things. And also, so we have two things. Every class has two properties basically. That is, the first one is it has some specific properties, and next one is it has it has some specific functions. So you wrap both properties and functions, or properties and some specific task in one entity. So that is object oriented programming. Okay. So in terms of when we talk about the object oriented programming, in terms of object oriented programming, we call the function as methods. The same functions that we defined in our normal uh, that we define in procedural languages. So those here are known as methods, and the same variables that we define in our procedural language, like we say int x equal to 2, int y equal to 3, something like that. So those are here known as properties. So object oriented programming uh, bears two things. One is properties or attributes, and next thing is methods. Okay. So why do we need that? We need that to wrap up the functionalities and behaviors at one place. So that means to say, when we like to when we like to wrap up things in one place, like persons, whatever is belongs to person, we want to bring it to the one place, not distributed or scattered everywhere. So like whatever belongs to university, we would like to bring to one place. So that means say it is a university class. So whatever belongs to chemistry, we would like to bring to one place. So at that moment, we will define one chemistry class or something like that. So this is object-oriented programming. Now, how can we define object-oriented programming? So for defining object-oriented programming, you just have to type a keyword class, then you have to provide the name of the class. Always remember that the class name should always start with capital letter. Class name should always start with capital letter. Okay. Then class name, then you just have to do the small bracket and close bracket, and then you have to provide this semicolon. So what it will do, so it will give you the uh, it will provide you an instance of class. It will give us the blueprint of a class. Let's define this class. Okay. Before defining, let me again come through this. So in you understand this. This is the name of the class, like class person. Then you have to understand this. So you have what you have to understand this is, so okay, let me give let me show it by example. You will understand better with example. Okay, so let's say I want to define one object, let's say human as a human.ipynb. I opened Google Colab, and now let's consider that I want to define a class named as human being. Okay, so what can I do is I will just type a keyword CLSS class, then I will give the name human, or maybe human only. So I will have to write like this here. If I just say pass, so pass means to say if you are doing nothing, if you are doing nothing, and if you have empty class, you haven't defined anything, and if you have defined an empty class, then you can just write PASS. So that means to say it will give a valid syntax. It is a valid syntax. Okay. So I executed this human class, and it has nothing, but it is void. We have not defined anything. Now, if we have to call this class, how can we call this class? So this is just a human only. So we don't know what type of human it is. We don't know what type of human it is, right? Like for example, human is human, but who is he? I don't know. If I am that person, let's say I am that person. So that means I am an object of this human class. So that means, well, let's say Prem. So Prem equal to, when I say human, Prem equal to, when I say human, okay, Prem equal to human. So when I say that, now I am an specific object of this human class. Prem is an specific object of this human class object. So that means to say we can create an object of human class by just doing that. You just have to give the class name and then you just have to put the bracket. Okay. Now what we did here, so we just created an instance of human class. We just created an instance of human class or an object of human class. So when I check this, when I check the type of this, if I check the type of this, checking object type. Okay, when I check the type of this, it will say that this is the type of class human. This is the type of human class. So it is saying this is the type of human class. Okay. Okay, cool. Now we want to add something like human. This is just a template, but we haven't added a template. We haven't added anything. Like, so that means to say, let's initialize like by default, human has some specific weight. And let's say, yeah, human has some weight. Every human has some weight. So let's say we would like to tell that every human has some specific weight. So if we have to do this, let's say what we do is we define the function, or maybe we initialize it. If I say def underscore underscore init underscore underscore, okay, def underscore underscore, when I say this, and here if I write self and do this, so here something I can write pass, nothing but pass. Okay, so what it is doing is, now we are defining some functions within human. We are defining some functions of human. So what we are telling is, by default human has some weight. So that means to say weight. So I told that init means to say initialize. So by default human, I am telling that by default human has some specific weight. So what is this self? So self is nothing but a reference to this human class as an object. So here, for example, we have Prem as a reference object. But inside this class, if we have to specify the properties of human, if we have to understand, if we have to get the properties of human, so what we have to do is we just have to put this name self, not that means this is the Python syntax. It is nothing but Python syntax. Just you have to type self here. Okay. So what we are telling is human has some specific weight. Human has some specific weight. Let's, what is that weight? We don't know, but we want to save this as variable. Save this weight variable. So if we have to save this as property as if we have to save this property, what we have to write is self dot WEIGST weight equal to self dot weight equal to weight. If you get confused, I'll change this to my weight. Okay, my weight. Okay. Now what I did here, so I just initialized its weight. I just initialized my weight. Human class has something, that human class has something property like weight. And what I am doing here, I'm just whatever the weight, it comes into initialized thing, I'm just saving it to the object property. Okay. So now if I have to do that, if I have to, let's say, if I have to call again the human object, what I will do is, so I will again say Prem equal to human. Now this time I'm expecting something from human. So I have defined a template here. What am I saying in this template is, whenever a person has to be defined, or whenever an instance of object, instance of human class has to be defined, that time my weight has to be defined necessarily. I'm telling this. Okay. Now let's say if I didn't define, what it will give. Let's execute this. And did not, if I do not define anything, it will give me error. So it said like missing one required positional argument over my weight. So that means to say, I have defined a human class as a template where it says like humans should be given a weight. Humans should be given weight. But here, when I defined my when I defined my object frame, so what I told, just I told human equal to frame equal to human only. I didn't tell anything about human. So it is giving me problem. So what I have to give here, I have to put my weight. Let's say my weight is 72. Now when I execute this, so this will work fine. Okay. Now let's say this is fine, but what I did nothing. I just defined a template. I just defined a template where it is accepting my weight as an initialization and just storing it into weight variable. Now I haven't done anything so far. So this pass, I will also remove this pass. Pass mean to say whenever I don't have any statement, I have to use this, otherwise I don't. So I just remove this. Let me define some function. Now this init is something, this init is a default function that is going to initialize this human class. This was by default. We have to write this like this only. So init means to say it will create an instance by default. Let's say there is function something inside. Let's say we have a brain. We have a brain that recognize what is our weight. Let's say my weight is 72 kg. My brain recognize what is my weight. So that means say I have one function. Let's say I have function. So we know that function is defined with keyword def. I have my function that means say mm, get weight, or say brain. Something like brain is my active brain, or memory, or let's say def. Um, I have memory unit. Let's say memory unit. Memory unit. Okay. So every human have his brain or memory unit, which can which recognize or which stores what is his weight or many other things. In this case, let's say memory unit is there, which simply tells that, let's say the person's this human weight is something. Now what is this human said? Now this does not understand about human weight, but as this my weight is saved into this weight variable, so this can be used here. So what I can say, self dot weight, self dot weight. So when I say this now, self. So you also have to remember the thing that you have to keep this SELF self parameter with every function. In normally in procedural programming, while we are doing previous programming, procedural programming, we don't have to use this SELF and all. But in object-oriented programming, every method should have at least one parameter, that is self. So self is nothing but reference to object values. So it will keep reference. So now I'm telling this human weight is self dot weight. So self dot weight, I don't know what is the weight. So even now this pass statement, I don't need this pass statement as well. Okay, because pass is just for empty. If there is nothing, I can write just pass. Okay, now let me execute this. Let me execute this. And now let's say that I have defined, I have I have an object named as frame, who which has who has a weight of 72 kilogram, but I want to display that what is my weight. So how can I display this? So as an object, when I have to communicate with this class, so how can I communicate with this class is using object dot function. Object dot, then you have to give the function name, that is memory unit. Okay, when you do that, so it will directly give you the human weight is 72. Okay, so what we did, I'm again telling you what we did. We just created one object named as frame, who has weight of 72 kilogram. So this is nothing but a property or attribute self dot this human. When you do this frame equal to human 72, so when you do this, the control automatically goes to here init function, and what it does is this 72 comes here, and this value it saves 72 kilo weight into this variable self dot weight. Now it is storing. Now this human class is storing. Human class is storing the weight value as 72. And then we have the memory unit, where memory unit is capable of telling what is its weight. So how can I recognize this weight using this self variable? So why we need self is because, so this is just a story. This is just a reference manager which keeps track of all those values. So when I say self dot weight, it will give me an weight. So I created an instance or object named as frame of human class, who has weight of 72 kilogram, and I want to display, frame wants to display, and frame wants to tell his weight. What is frame wants to tell his weight? So how can frame tell his weight? He can tell his weight using the memory or brain. So frame dot means to say frame is calling. Where frame is calling to what? Frame is calling to its memory unit. Frame is calling to memory unit. When frame calls to its memory unit, so the memory unit replies or does its job. So which is to print the value of print the which is to give the weight, give the answers regarding its weight. Okay, great job. So this is all about the concept of object oriented programming. So here we define just a class. So class is nothing but blueprint of an object. So we define just a template here, and we can have this objects. We can create objects. Similarly, let's say I want to create some another object. Let's say I want to create some object. I want to create some human. Now what I want to create, let's say I want to create some another human, that is Asif. Asif equal to human. I created an human class object Asif, who has weight of 75 kg, let's say. Okay, okay, I created next instance. Okay, so next what I want to do is I want to I want to display the age of Asif dot memory unit. Asif dot memory unit. When I say Asif dot memory unit, so Asif's weight will be displayed. The human weight is the human weight is 72. Now if I have to say, let's say it is telling about human weight, but let's say who is that person, I want to define this also. So if I have to define this, here I can, in memory unit I can pass the name, person name, okay, as an object. So instead of human weight, this human weight is this instead of this human weight, I'll tell this comma plus this comma, this comma person, this person comma, okay, this person weight is self dot weight. If I tell that, now what I have to do is, now every time When I have to call the memory dot unit, I have to pass the name as well. Okay. So when I pass the name, now it will give me is not executed. Okay. This primo, it is the portion, not the person. The frames weight is okay. When I tell that, so the frames weight is 72. Next time what it tells, Asif, I define the Asif and Asif's memory unit when I call this. Now Asif is also asking for name. Asif, his name is Asif. And when I say that, the Asif, so it is 75. So in this way, we defined both functions and properties, or in other words, we defined activities and properties that are encapsulated within a class. So this behavior is known as object-oriented programming. So in object-oriented programming, what we did, we created a class. We created a class that is nothing but a blueprint. So this underscore underscore init underscore underscore, what it does, so it does nothing but it initialize. It is just a syntax to initialize or construct an object. So it is asking for my weight. It is asking for the weight. So we can create an instance by just saying prem equal to human 72. So it is nothing but just calling of similar to calling as a function. It is simple, as simple as that, just similar to calling a function. So this is that, and we created instance like that, and we invoke the other functions with dot functions, asif dot memory unit. Then it gave us human object. So this is the one thing. So next thing what we can do is we can inherit the properties from human class, and we have some specific instance of it. Let's say, so that kind of thing is known as inheritance. So inheritance means to say transference of properties from top class to the bottom class. Let's say, as we as a person, we get our characteristics from our father. Similarly, we can take benefits here also. So we can reuse, or we can reuse the properties, or we can reuse the properties or whatever are there with our father, right? So that type of behavior is known as inheritance. Inheritance means to say reusing the functionalities of the parent class. So let's say here I want to have another class which is known as class as a human class. Then as a subclass, let's say I am a American class. Okay, class American person, class American person. Okay, now this class American person is inheriting properties of human, right? So this class American person is inheriting the properties of human. So that means I just have to write human. Okay, like this, human. And then here we have the same thing, init. So init, let's say shelf here, comma, let's say American person has some specific height. Okay, then here maybe height is there. Then what we can say is we can save this height into some variable, sel self dot ameri American height equal to height. Okay, so we define this. And also, so before doing this, we just have to initialize this parent class as well. Like parent class also, you can initialize the, if you have to call that in, if you have to call this, if you have to call this human class, you can initialize this human class using some specific construct that is known as super dot, if you say super dot underscore underscore init underscore this. Okay, super dot init this. And in super dot init, what we have here, we are passing the weight. Let's say we are passing here the weight. So the passing, while passing the weight, so we can pass here, like, let's say height is there and we can have weight here also. We can pass here the weight also. Okay. So that means to say what it is doing. So it is invoking to the parent class. It is invoking the parent class and passing the weight, and also it has its own height as well. So now what we can do here is def, let's say display details. Def, we have the function display details. Then here what we have is, we have self, then what we can say is print the weight and height are self dot weight, comma, self dot height. So when I say that, let's create an American person object, like American. I'm just trying to create American person. So this American person, how can I create an object of American person? So I just have to do American and just do this. Now what it is, what it is asking, it is asking for this init is asking for two things. So this is asking for two things. So the first thing is weight, and next thing is height. Okay. So weight, let's say we have the weight of 72, and let's say as it is American person, they have good height. It's a 7 feet of height. And we want to display details of American. So when you say American dot display details, here is the spelling mistake, display display details. When I say display details, okay. So what it does, let's execute what it does. So it says some specific kind of problem. Init requires a super object to receive. Init requires a super object but received or int. So maybe this is asking for super this function. American person has no object height. Okay, so this is, as we are defining the variable self dot American height, so this is not height but self dot American height. Okay. 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 Height and weight are 72, 7. Okay. So now what we did was we just reuse the functionalities of class person, class human, and we created a child class known as American. How can we create the child class? We created child class using this American person, and within that construct, give we just give its a type as human. So human is nothing but this class human. Okay, this human class we created, and then we initialize a human class with self weight and height, and then what we called so we called this parent class, as the parent class is expecting the weight, because as we are telling, the parent class is responsible for initializing the weight. So when we have to initialize the parent class, so we just have to use the construct super 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 dot init. This is the same This is the same construct as we have there, and it is expecting the weight, and we are passing the weight. Okay, we are passing the weight, and we have this American person has a variable named as self dot American height. American height variable is here. So we are displaying the American person's detail. So the weight and height of the American person are, so the weight is coming from this human class, so which is like 72 kg, and American height, this is coming from this one. So we are customizing the behavior and reusing our own properties, reusing the properties or functions available with human class to the child class. So this is the concept of object oriented programming, where you understood about what is object, what is class, what is object oriented programming, and why object oriented programming is required. How object oriented programming is able to encapsulate the behavior of properties, the behavior of defining properties and its functions or activities at a single place, and how you can take benefits of one class, how you can take the benefits of parent class to the child class. So I think this is enough for today. Uh, so if you have any questions, you can ask, or otherwise we can stop. I can stop my presentation. Okay, quickly. So if you have any question, please ask. No questions? Jairam, Asif, Jhalak, Santosh, no
अहिले
questions?
अहिले पढेकै अहिले यहाँ पढ्दाखेरि त सबै बुझे जस्तो लाग्छ आफै
Okay,
गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अनि आई डोन्ट नो
okay, great. That's very good. And I think so you can understand, and you can understand better. It was very simple. Maybe you can rewatch this video, and if you were able to truly understand this object-oriented programming, then you can probably understand the codes, that the artificial intelligence codes and software libraries, whatever are written in Python and many other frameworks also. So you can understand these very well. So if you understand this very simple concept, very simple but very important concept, like object, how we define object, how we define class, what is the method, what is the attribute, how can we communicate, how can we share the values from human parent class to child class, and so on. Okay, so what shall I do? Let me stop this recording. Have I recorded the audio? I don't think I have recorded, right? Okay, here is stop recording.